This is the official Insane Clown Posse Iceberg. With over 30 years in the game, the Insane Clown Posse has become one of the most recognizable rap groups in hip-hop and music as a whole. However, with music dating back to the late 80s, it goes without saying that there's a lot of things to know about ICP. But just how much is there to know? Well, hopefully, I can help you answer that today, as we are going to be covering the Insane Clown Posse Iceberg. By the end of this video, you will know what every single topic on this iceberg means. So just a few quick things before we get started. I assume you know what an iceberg is, but if not, it's basically just a bunch of trivia about ICP with the more well-known facts at the top and getting more obscure and darker as you go down. This specific list has over 100 topics, but don't feel like you have to watch it all in one sitting, as I left some timestamps in the description for you to be able to leave and come back as you please. I wrote this video for the Juggalos, but I organized it in a way for someone who wouldn't understand the entire world of Juggalo stuff to get a bit more familiar. So don't be mad when you realize the Mars Dark Lotus situation isn't until tier 8. And since there are literally hundreds of different topics which could have potentially been on this list, I thought it would be more entertaining to take some of the topics which are more interesting to talk about, versus loading this up with obscure facts which would be kinda boring to talk about. And finally, as a special thank you to everybody watching this video, I'm going to be doing a giveaway. One lucky viewer is going to get a special Violent J Pillow Buddy, as well as the Violent J autobiography, Behind the Paint. All you have to do to enter this giveaway is subscribe to my YouTube channel and go comment on my most recent post on Instagram. Comment your favorite animal, and then in about 3 or 4 weeks, I'll pick a winner and I'll announce it on Instagram. But that's enough talking for the intro. We have a lot of stuff we have to cover, so let's just get into this. Ladies and gentlemen, Juggalos and Juggalettes, welcome to the Insane Clown Posse Iceberg. Juggalos and Juggalettes. Starting off this iceberg, we have Juggalos and Juggalettes. As opposed to other music fan bases, Juggalos are much more dedicated to their love of the group. It's pretty hard to explain everything about Juggalos and Juggalettes in a short entry on an iceberg, but most of them, like 99%, are just simple people who enjoy Insane Clown Posse. Still, that hasn't stopped a negative image from growing around the lows and lets, but we'll discuss that image in just a few minutes. Joker's cards. Instead of studio albums, ICP releases what they call Joker's cards. Each card has a theme which tells the listener about the cause and effect their everyday choices have on their life. Practically every ICP studio album is a Joker's card. So far, there are 11 Joker's cards, with 17 planned total. Magnants. So ICP has been the victim of plenty of ridicule and hatred over their career, and the most recognized joke against ICP comes from a lyric on the track Miracles. Miracles is a song which the two of them point out the fact that the wonder of the worlds are miracles, and most people don't take the time to stop and appreciate them. It really is a good message for a song. However, the execution of the track fell short, with numerous lines being flat out corny and cringe at times. The most famous example of this comes from Shaggy, who infamously said, "Fucking magnets, how do they work?" This specific line became a meme, and people to this very day only associate ICP and Juggalos with this line. You can also find tons of references to this line, including people actually teaching Juggalos how magnets work. The magnets line is pretty infamous in the Juggalo world, but it seems as if everyone's just accepted it. Yeah, it seems like everybody's pretty much moved on, but you can still find plenty of memes about magnets. So if you're a fan of ICP, you better get used to people talking about magnets with you. The Gathering of the Juggalos. The Gathering of the Juggalos is the annual music festival presented by Insane Clown Posse and Psychopathic Records. This festival features a plethora of musical performances for really any genre, as well as other events, meet and greets, contests, wrestling, and it's really just an all-around good time. Basically, imagine Coachella for Juggalos. The festival has seen a wide variety of names and acts, too many to list off here, and has rightfully earned legend status in the world of music. The event itself has been covered on YouTube numerous times, including this video on what the gathering is like, which just so happens to have been created by me and is available on my YouTube channel right now. Still, the gathering has seen its fair share of negative press over the years, including the most infamous case against the gathering of the Juggalos, which was Tila Tequila. The Tila Tequila incident is probably the most well-known thing to have ever happened at the gathering of the Juggalos. If you don't know Tila Tequila, she was this woman who made a name for herself in reality TV, with her show A Shot at Love with Tila Tequila being highly successful on MTV. She was also a rapper who, during her tour promoting one of her EPs, appeared at the gathering of the Juggalos. However, the crowd wasn't happy with her presence, and almost immediately began pelting her with rocks, bottles, and really anything else that they could hit her with. To her credit, she didn't leave the stage like most people would have, and chose to continue the show. However, the crowd only got worse as the show went on. It got so bad that comedian Tom Green even came on stage to calm the crowd. But that didn't work at all. When Tila finally left, it said that she had numerous cuts and bruises, and even planned to take legal action against the event. Tila Tequila's performance has been well documented, and you can find basically the entire set online. Tila Tequila at the Gathering of the Juggalos has become the go-to topic of discussion when the gathering is brought up. Faygo. Faygo is a very cheap soda pop which was popular, especially with low-income families. ICP loved the soda growing up, and when they started making music, over time the soda became a staple in their act. Not only talking about it in their music, but also literally using it in their performances. These Faygo wars are a staple to live ICP performances. Basically, where ICP goes, there's more than likely hundreds of bottles of Faygo to follow. Sadly though, despite ICP's love of Faygo, Faygo has never reciprocated the love publicly, and has practically never acknowledged the Insane Clown Posse. To me, it just seems like that's ignoring money, but that's their prerogative. Eminem beef. Insane Clown Posse has had multiple beefs throughout their careers, but the most well-known is with another Detroit-based MC by the name of Marshall Mathers. Eminem and ICP's beef goes back over 20 years and began when Eminem included their name on a flyer for the release of his debut album, the Slim Shady EP. Now ICP didn't like the inclusion of their name on the flyer, and they crumpled it up and threw it back at him. Eminem was obviously offended by this and began dissing ICP in interviews and on songs, including the famous bar, "Fuck ICP, buy my CD." ICP would then respond with the track Slim Anus, which was a parody of the song My Name Is and featured rapper Jamie Madrox impersonating Eminem, rapping lyrics which made Eminem out to be gay. According to Violent J, a radio station actually played the song for Eminem during an interview. However, I couldn't find this audio of this happening anywhere online. Eminem would then respond with 2 tracks on the Marshall Mathers LP, including an entire skit which showed the Eminem character Ken Kniff getting lucky with both members of ICP. Eminem also pulled a weapon on an ICP associate and regularly made fun of Insane Clown Posse during his live performances. ICP would respond to this with 3 songs on their double album Bizarre Bizarre, as well as a free song download on their website titled Nothing But a Bitch. Ain't nothing but a bitch, something like that. The beef between ICP and Eminem would wage until around 2005, when Eminem's best friend Proof reached out to ICP in an attempt to squash the beef. At this time, Proof was on a mission to squash all of Eminem's past beefs, and Proof reaching out eventually led to an official Psychopathic vs. D12 bowling match. ICP went on to state that Eminem wasn't actually there, however Proof reaching out to them was enough for them because Proof actually recognized ICP as a beef worth squashing. Ever since, it seems as if Eminem and ICP have respect for one another, with Eminem shouting them out multiple times on his songs, and ICP even appearing on Shade 45. It's good to see both ICP and M being able to move on from some high school-esque level beef. Also, I made an Eminem Iceberg, which is also available on my channel. Twisted. One of the biggest names in the Juggalo world is the rap group Twisted. Consisting of rappers Jamie Madrox and Monoxide Child, they caught the attention of ICP in the mid to late 90s. They sent a demo tape to Violent J, who was impressed by the tape, and invited the duo on tour, and subsequently signed them to Psychopathic Records. This is when they officially adopted the name Twisted. Twisted worked shoulder to shoulder with ICP for nearly 20 years, and was basically the second biggest act on Psychopathic after ICP. Outside of numerous successful album releases, Twisted also took part in plenty of ICP projects, including features, rap groups, and even movies, all of which we will discuss in this video. Twisted has become very successful, yet a very controversial topic in the Juggalo world in modern times. This was due to Twisted's decision to go solo. Now, I'm going to discuss the Twisted controversy when we discuss Magic Ninja Entertainment, but I wanted to end this topic positively, so despite how the Juggalos might feel about Twisted now, their contributions to the Juggalo culture shouldn't be understated. Twisted was with Psychopathic from nearly the beginning, and stuck by ICP for plenty of the topics on this list. Horrorcore. So horrorcore is a genre of rap music with a heavy focus on violent lyrics and an all-around focus on horror themes and oftentimes shock value. As opposed to the other violent genres of rap and hip-hop, horrorcore often pushes the boundaries of violence and often can be quite disturbing to a new listener. Basically, imagine those shock value horror movies, but instead, it's music. The controversial genre is often cited as being originated by ICP, and while that isn't true, as it was actually Gangsta Nip, Insane Clown Posse is arguably the best example of what horrorcore is. In fact, if you Google horrorcore right now, Insane Clown Posse is the first artist that comes up. There's a strong argument to be made that without ICP, horrorcore would have never been what it is today. I'm not going to sit here and act like the genre would have never seen popularity, but ICP has helped push the genre past being just some small thing and helped it become a viable option. Psychopathic Records. Psychopathic Records is the record label founded by Insane Clown Posse alongside Alex Abyss. ICP released several smaller projects on the label before finding local success in Detroit with the release of their first studio album, Carnival of Carnage. ICP continued releasing music on the label, including their second album, Ringmaster, which sold over 40,000 copies independently. These sales eventually helped them sign a deal with another label, Jive Records. After this, ICP jumped between a few record labels, some of which we will discuss on this iceberg. However, ICP decided to do their own thing in the early 2000s, releasing their sixth official Joker's card, The Wraith Shangri-La, solely on Psychopathic, and basically every album after this has become a Psychopathic release only. Psychopathic Records has also signed a number of artists over the years who have tons of different albums and EPs on the label. Psychopathic Records was truly created from the ground up, and if you can't find any other reason to like them, at the very least, you gotta respect the hustle of this true rags to riches story. The Hatchet Man. The Hatchet Man is the logo of Psychopathic. Every CD from Psychopathic, basically all the merchandise, and anything else Juggalo related will have a Hatchet Man logo. Woodstock 99. Woodstock 99 has gone down as one of the most infamous live music events to have ever taken place. I don't want to take too much time discussing why exactly it's perceived so negatively, but my buddy Uncle Unbaited has a great video on the topic which you should check out whenever you have the chance. However, one of the most talked about things that took place at that event was a live performance from Insane Clown Posse. ICP gave the crowd a full-fledged ICP show, including women, stunts, and of course, Fago. Another moment from this performance which is brought up when talking about the event was a moment when ICP taped money to beach balls and then threw them out to the crowd. This obviously caused the crowd to go crazy and fight each other for the money. The full performance can be found pretty easily online and is pretty wild to watch. Wrestling. The Insane Clown Posse are no strangers to the world of professional wrestling, as not only fans but actual wrestlers with some serious accolades to back it up. Starting when they were just children backyard wrestling, they've worked for multiple wrestling promotions throughout their career. These promotions include WCW, ECW, and of course, WWE. They're best known by mainstream wrestling fans for their 1998 WWF run, alongside the Oddities, which was the stable of, quote, human oddities. And despite their run being only a few months in time, ICP actually saw some in-ring action, one moment of which we will discuss later on this iceberg. Juggalos versus the FBI. Ending Tier 1, we have this well-documented beef between the Juggalos and none other than the FBI. We've established that Juggalos and Juggalettes are simply just fans of ICP, albeit sometimes pretty hardcore in their fanship. However, the violent nature of ICP's lyrics, along with the criminal acts of just a few, led the FBI to officially label Juggalos as an actual gang in 2011. The official report said, "The Juggalos, a loosely organized hybrid gang, are rapidly expanding into many U.S. communities. Although recognized as a gang in only 4 states, many Juggalo subsets exhibit gang-like behavior and engage in criminal activities and violence." So basically, Juggalos and Juggalettes in Arizona, California, Pennsylvania, and Utah are legally considered to be gang members. Now, the classification was based off crimes perpetrated by Juggalos and Juggalettes, which, full disclosure, is a rather long list, including actual gang sets that have existed. Still, this doesn't represent the larger Juggalo community, which is literally 99% just people who enjoy music. ICP has since sued the FBI, and after several years of criminal proceedings, was ultimately thrown out of court for being unable to demonstrate the harm caused by the original 2011 report. The gang classification is still in place today, and the situation has become a highly debated topic in the world of music, with tons of people who don't like ICP still supporting them. The ACLU of Michigan has even defended ICP in the legal proceedings, and has numerous pieces of information out there regarding the case, including this paragraph which I think sums it all up pretty well. In 2016, Judge Cleland dismissed the case for a second time, holding that the Juggalos did not suffer legal consequences, and therefore could not challenge the designation under the Administrative Procedures Act. We appealed, but unfortunately in December of 2017, the Sixth Circuit Court affirmed the dismissal of this case. Although the Juggalos did not win in court, the case was very successful in other ways, including raising public awareness about the absurdity of the gang designation, causing the FBI to admit to the court that only a small number of Juggalos were engaged in criminal activity, and putting local law enforcement agencies on notice that they can be sued for targeting Juggalos. Listen, we could go on with this topic all day, so I'm just gonna finish it with this. Juggalos are family, not gang members. Howard Stern. Starting Tier 2 strong, Howard Stern is a radio personality and shock jock who hosts one of the most successful radio shows of all time, The Howard Stern Show. Insane Clown Posse were regular guests on Howard Stern in the late 90s through the 2000s. While Howard's messed with ICP on numerous occasions, including having men paint their privates as Jay and Shaggy, Howard has gave ICP a national platform to speak their mind without censorship. ICP always appreciated what Howard did for them, so as a thank you, they created the track The Mind of Howard Stern, which is a story of how Howard Stern is secretly a serial unaliver. The song can be found on Forgotten Freshness 5 and is actually the very first ICP song I ever heard, The Dark Carnival. The Dark Carnival is supposed to be a figurative carnival where the evil souls which are destined for hell reside, while the characters from the Joker's cards are there to try and save them. I don't want to confuse any noobs further than I already have, so I'll sum it up like this. Almost every ICP album has been telling a coherent story since the beginning, and that story takes place at the Dark Carnival. However, it was ultimately revealed on track 17 of The Wraith Shangri-La that the Dark Carnival represented God, and ICP has since expanded this thought by saying the Dark Carnival represented the Creator. This revelation was controversial amongst fans, but yeah, that's basically the story of the Dark Carnival without getting into a huge philosophical debate. JCW. We previously discussed ICP's connection to the world of professional wrestling, so it might not surprise you that ICP has their very own wrestling promotion. Founded in 1999, JCW is a full-fledged wrestling promotion which has seen plenty of respected names wrestling for the organization. JCW has ran plenty of live events and released numerous pay-per-views, live shows, and DVDs. The current world champion of JCW as of the recording of this video is Vampiro, longtime wrestler and close friend of the Insane Clown Posse. If you like ICP and professional wrestling, you should venture down this rabbit hole for sure, especially those original JCW DVDs. I fucking loved those when I was a kid. Guy Fieri, Smash Mouth, and Violent J. So there's this popular joke which has been shared a lot online which basically says we've never seen Guy Fieri, the guy from Smash Mouth, and Violent J in the same place. So that must mean they're the same person. There isn't really anything else that goes into this entry. Chop Chop Slide TikToks. Okay, so as part of the nuclear edition of Bang Pow Boom, ICP released a song called Chop Chop Slide. Chop Chop Slide is supposed to be the Juggalo version of the Cha-Cha Slide, and while the song was meant for Juggalo events, it actually found unexpected success on TikTok. The trend was decently big and was a bunch of people's first and to some, only experience with ICP. Although, some Juggalos who totally need to chill the fuck out don't like TikTokers using ICP music without knowing anything about Juggalo culture. Personally, I think we should just let kids be kids. Workaholics. On the Season 1 Episode 7 episode of Workaholics, Straight Up Juggalos, the three main characters end up at an Insane Clown Posse concert. I'm not going to spoil the episode because it's honestly pretty funny and you should experience it for yourself, so yeah, that's it. Sideshows. Another part of the Dark Carnival storyline are the sideshows. The sideshows are rides within the Dark Carnival which the souls can partake in. Now, the sideshows themselves are EPs and songs with titles of carnival rides such as The Tunnel of Love, The Terror Wheel, The Tilt-A-Whirl, The House of Wax, and many more. These projects are additional lore to the other Joker's cards and just give us more insight into the world of the Dark Carnival. Basically, just treat every album in ICP's discography as you would the Marvel Cinematic Universe, with each musical project furthering the Dark Carnival saga. Big Money Hustlers. Big Money Hustlers is a 2000 comedy film written by Violent J and starring the Insane Clown Posse. The film is a comedic take on the cliché story of a detective, played by Shaggy, trying to take down a crime lord, played by Violent J. The movie featured many cameos of plenty of ICP's friends and acquaintances, including Twisted and Mick Foley. Violent J was given a budget of $250,000 from Island Records, but he ended up going over budget and reportedly paid $100,000 of his own money to finish the film. The crew on the film also disliked the working conditions and the cast, and were said to have went on strike 2 separate times during the filming process. Despite this, the film went on to debut as #1 on the Billboard's Top Music Videos chart and has since become a legend in the Juggalo world. ICP went on to create another movie, which is a sequel only in name. That movie was called Big Money Wrestlers. Big Money Wrestlers is a 2010 comedy film parodying a western, which is the sequel to Big Money Hustlers. Shaggy plays a sheriff in an old western town which is being controlled by a dangerous gang of outlaws, led by Violent J. It also seems as if the work environment on this movie was much better, which isn't surprising considering the movie had a budget of $1.5 million. This movie, as well as Big Money Hustlers, are pretty fun watches for fans of ICP. I personally enjoy Big Money Wrestlers better, but I'm curious if others do too. Leave a comment below if you've seen both, and let me know which one you prefer. 17. 17 is a number you'll see pop up commonly throughout the Juggalo world. It's kinda unclear what exactly 17 is supposed to represent, but it pops up all over the place and you'll find it a lot as you go down the ICP rabbit hole. 17 is said to have originated from the amount of copies Carnival of Carnage sold on the first day. I don't know. 17 is just another one of those reoccurring things in the Juggalo world. Steve-O. So, Insane Clown Posse and Jackass member Steve-O have a very storied history, which began during one of Steve-O's live shows in 2004. Violent J and rapper ABK just so happened to be in the same city as Steve-O, and they randomly met one another one night at a hotel. Steve-O, who was in the heyday of his well-documented addiction issues, invited ICP to his show. J and ABK agreed to go and started hanging out with Steve-O for the night. However, over the course of their hangout session, Steve-O became more and more disrespectful to J, including Steve-O claiming that Jay isn't a real clown since Steve-O actually went to clown college. Steve-O kept slipping in jabs at Jay, which weren't really sugar-coated at all and were just flat-out, full-fledged insults. When they ended up at the show, Jay was pretty turned off to the violent nature of the entire performance, but still said he enjoyed it. However, as the days passed after the show and Violent J had time to marinate, he disliked Steve-O more and more. Many years later, Violent J told the story of his hangout session with Steve-O in a video, talking about how he and his friends had a plan to attack Steve-O the next time they saw him. Steve-O saw this video and invited Jay on his podcast to apologize for his behavior and ultimately squash the beef. It was during this podcast that Steve-O learned about the situation with the FBI, and he thought it sounded cool. So, he got a Hatchet Man tattooed on his wrist. Steve-O has since hosted a night of the gathering of the Juggalos and even returned to hip-hop with the release of an official song with Violent J, titled I Love My Girl. But Violent J and Steve-O are said to be friends as of the recording of this video, and it's pretty cool to see their beef got squashed. Sharon Osbourne. Sharon Osbourne is the wife of legendary rock star Ozzy Osbourne, who has had a well-documented beef with Insane Clown Posse. It all started during the Amazing Jeckel Brothers tour in 1999. The tour featured multiple opening acts, including a band named Coal Chamber. Now, Coal Chamber is a nu metal group which found success during this era, and more importantly, was managerized, I don't know if that's a word, by Sharon Osbourne. So, as the tour went on, the crowd weren't really fans of Coal Chamber, and after only a short period touring together, ICP announced that Coal Chamber was removed from the tour. Later, during an interview with Howard Stern, Coal Chamber confronted ICP, not really hating, but more wanting to understand why they were thrown off the tour. Violent J explained that they were cut because they simply weren't selling enough tickets. Coal Chamber and ICP seemed to end the confrontation on decent ground, and it didn't really seem like there was any animosity. But Jay went on to discuss Sharon Osbourne, and said that she told him that they were going to burn bridges messing with her. Jay took this chance to say, quote, he'd smack her. Now it's important to understand that Sharon was highly powerful in the music industry, and was feared by many because she truly could ruin someone's music career if she wanted to. However, Violent J basically said that they were already blacklisted in the industry, so realistically, what could she do? Sharon heard the interview and called Howard the next day, leaving a highly vulgar message threatening ICP.
Hi, it's Sharon Osbourne calling. So those two clowns want to slap my face, Casey? That's fine. I'll go in the studio. Let them try. Let me tell you something. I weigh 220 pounds. I'm bigger than the pair of them put together. I'll beat the shit out of the pair of the and my old man will come with me.
Oh, don't pick him.
So give us a call. Bye.
Yep. Her husband is Ozzy Osbourne, and he can put the devil on you.
The very next day, ICP would return to Howard Stern because Sharon wanted to confront them. Sharon and ICP would spend close to 40 minutes in a no-holds-barred verbal smackdown, which saw ICP make fun of her weight, and Sharon saying she'd fight ICP. A lot is said during this interview, and it's one of the funniest things I have ever watched. Ultimately, though, Sharon argued that ICP was jealous of Coal Chamber since they were better, to which they responded by saying Coal Chamber sucked and some pretty wild things about Ozzy. During the interview, they also made a bet. Sharon bet ICP that their next album wouldn't see more than 200,000 copies, to which ICP accepted. The interview is truly one of the greatest videos I've ever watched, and also, ICP's next album went on to sell the 200,000 copies, yet Sharon never paid up. ICP talked about the bet years later during another visit to Howard and basically stated she never paid up even though she lost. They even said to just donate the $50K to a charity, but the payment never happened. The Rebel Flag. Starting off Tier 3, there's a misconception about Juggalos amongst people who really don't know anything about them. It isn't rare at all to find people commenting on Juggalos saying that they expect them to have pretty conservative views. Trailer trash, to put it bluntly. However, anyone who knows ICP or Juggalos knows this isn't the case at all. And one big giveaway of their views is their beef with none other than the Confederate flag. So if you're an international viewer and you don't know about this flag, basically during the American Civil War between the North and the South was represented by this flag. And despite the fact the North won, there are plenty of people who still fly this flag to this very day for whatever reason. However, plenty of Americans see this flag as flat out racist, and see it as a representation of what people shouldn't believe in, and Insane Clown Posse themselves are no exception. ICP has unapologetically went against this flag multiple times throughout their career, with songs like Your Rebel Flag and Confederate Flag, both of which feature lyrics which paint exactly how ICP stands on this flag. ICP has also burned the flag on stage, as well as dropped a special shirt which depicts a burning rebel flag. Not to mention, I personally witnessed a rebel flag burning party 2 separate times at the gathering of the Juggalos. Yeah, they don't like that flag. Wade Hebert. Wade Hebert is a supporting character in the extremely popular Grand Theft Auto V, who just so happens to be a Juggalo. Wade is a partner of main character Trevor Phillips, who looks after Wade, and has been looking after him ever since his friends quote-unquote ditched him on their way to the gathering. The Forever music video. Forever is the final track on the mighty Death Pop and has a theme of living life to the fullest because we won't live forever. The track is a great way to wrap up the album, but one thing some people aren't aware of is the official music video for the song. The music video is only available on a DVD collection of music videos, Psychopathic Videos Volume 2. Before the video plays, former ICP associate Kevin Gill said the video just wasn't fresh enough to be released, despite the fact they're releasing it. ICP Theater. Insane Clown Posse Theater was a 2013 television series which aired on Fuse TV. The show consisted of Jay and Shaggy, accompanied by Sugar Slam, Kevin Gill, and wrestler Greg the Hammer Valentine. And they would watch popular music videos, viral videos, and whatever else from pop culture they could feast their eyes on, and giving their unfiltered commentary. Each episode also included a segment where they watch a video with a special guest. These guests include Gilbert Godfrey, Corey Feldman, Coolio, and more. The show ran for 2 seasons and is a really entertaining watch. Seeing ICP give their opinions on mainstream music is really hilarious considering these guys are the opposite of mainstream. Chris Hansen. Chris Hansen is an American television personality and journalist, best known for his work as the host on To Catch a Predator. So the way I understand it is that Chris Hansen found the song To Catch a Predator, which is about Violent J tricking those really bad people into believing they were meeting a child, but instead, Jay would beat them up and unalive them. Hansen was a fan of the track and invited ICP on his podcast. ICP invited Hansen onto their podcast, and they would hang out together and ultimately become friends. ICP then collaborated on merchandise with Hansen and invited him to host a day at the Gathering of the Juggalos 2021. Hansen is well loved by the Juggalos as they see what Hansen does and how he takes down those really bad people as God's work. So to sum up this topic in one line, Chris Hansen is a juggalo. Vanilla Ice. Vanilla Ice is an American rapper, best known for his hit song Ice Ice Baby and ninja rap, which was created for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2. Vanilla Ice has seen considerable success in music, despite the court of public opinion generally reacting negatively towards him. However, one group that have plenty of love for Vanilla Ice is the Juggalos. The Juggalos have always been down with Vanilla Ice due to the friendship between Vanilla and ICP, who have been really good friends since the early 2000s. ICP is featured on a few Vanilla Ice tracks, and Vanilla has featured in several ICP ventures, including performances at The Gathering. Vanilla Ice has never really shied away from showing love to the Juggalos and has been seen regularly rocking a hatchet man and shouting out the Juggalo family. Vanilla Ice was even signed to Psychopathic at one point, but we'll discuss what happened with that later on this iceberg. Fred Durst Dropkick. Fred Durst is best known as the frontman for the nu metal group Limp Bizkit, who had a bizarre situation happen with Shaggy 2 Dope. In October of 2018, Limp Bizkit was doing a show like usual, when without warning, some random guy ran from the back of the stage and attempted to drop kick Fred Durst. Side note, this is one of the worst attempts at a drop kick I've ever seen in my life. Usually you have to blur stuff like this on YouTube, but it's so bad I'm not even worried about it. Durst played it off pretty well, but it was later revealed that the person who attempted this dropkick was none other than a non-face painted Shaggy 2 Dope. And the next day, Limp Bizkit member DJ Lethal took to Instagram Live, where he commented on the dropkick.
I would love for this dude to come on and ask for gold live. Oh, you hardcore Mr. Shaggy 2 Dope? Let's go live right now. I seen Tekashi 69 do it. You want to fucking stage crash my stage, bro? After I watched your fucking shit, gave you props, my G? Fucking dick, bro. Dick move.
In the years since, Shaggy has apologized for the attempted dropkick on Steve-O's Wild Ride podcast. The Oddities. So the Oddities were a wrestling stable for the WWF in 1998 and 1999. The group was this carnival sideshow freak show type group which were literally presented as the Parade of Human Oddities. After originally being presented as bad guys, the group eventually changed to a fun-loving group of fellas, which would come out to a theme song which was written and performed by ICP. Not only that, but ICP would literally come out with the Oddities performing the theme song for the crowd. The ICP WWF experiment was short-lived as ICP walked out of the company after only a few months. But you can still find plenty of ICP clips with the Oddities from that time re-uploaded to YouTube. Solo albums. While ICP works on projects together, they have both released several solo projects. As of the recording of this video, Jay has 4 solo projects and Shaggy has 5. Despite not being in a duo, most of these projects are well worth your time, especially Wizard of the Hood, which is easily top 5 albums of all time for me. There's also a handful of solo projects which have been announced, however, don't hold your breath as you never know if something that's promoted will actually come out. The struggles of a juggalo, am I right? Kid Rock. Kid Rock is an American singer and musician best known for his country rock music, but actually started in the music game as a rapper. Being as how Kid Rock is a Detroit-raised MC and the fact he was exploring the rap game at the same time as ICP, it's no surprise Kid Rock and ICP were acquainted, so much so that Kid Rock is actually featured on the original version of the first Joker's card, Carnival of Carnage. However, the relationship between the musicians is pretty all over the place. Jay has said that while ICP and Kid Rock were friends in the early days, they never really matched energies and you could tell. But Jay still doesn't have any real beef with him. Meanwhile, Shaggy was quoted as calling him a racist piece of shit, which Jay didn't dispute. Still, Shaggy gave him props for how hard he would grind back in the day, so yeah, these guys are all over the place with their opinion. Kid Rock has never really commented on them as far as I can find, and he probably won't because he's too busy shooting beer cans in his yard. Magic Ninja Entertainment. Magic Ninja Entertainment is a record label founded in 2014 by Twisted after the departure from Psychopathic. Magic Ninja has become basically the main rival to Psychopathic in terms of Juggalo music, as M&E has signed multiple acts from Psychopathic over the years, as well as some original acts. So basically, Twisted started their own label and then signed everybody on Psychopathic to that, leaving nobody left for ICP. However, there's an argument to be made that ICP doesn't really need those other acts. Magic Ninja and Psychopathic haven't seen eye to eye for several years, as you might expect with the way things ended. Magic Ninja is still going strong to this day, and can be found at magicninjaentertainment.com. Aqua Teen Hunger Force. Aqua Teen Hunger Force was an adult animated series which aired on Adult Swim. The show follows the adventures of 3 fast food items which are alive. If you don't know the show itself, you might know it for the 2007 scare, where promotional displays were mistaken for causing the city of Boston to shut down for several hours. My buddy Uncle Unbaited has a video on the event that you should go check out because it's a really hilarious story in hindsight. Sorry, I'm getting off topic. The Season 7 episode Juggalo features a storyline based around ICP, and even features a cameo from Jay and Shaggy. As always, I don't want to spoil the episode for anyone who hasn't seen it, so go look it up for yourself. But wait until the video is finished to do that. Tosh.0. Tosh.0 was a Comedy Central television show similar to Talk Soup, but instead of television clips, it was internet videos. There was a popular segment in the show called The Web Redemption, where they would offer someone who was embarrassed in a viral video clip a second chance to redeem themselves. One episode featured a young Juggalo, who posted a video of himself rapping online, and it wasn't good by any means. So Daniel gave the kid the opportunity to record the song professionally, and even shot a music video for it. When the music video premieres, the viewer will be surprised to see ICP themselves took part in the video, rapping the lyrics the young Juggalo wrote. It's a pretty cool moment on one of my favorite shows growing up, so it's worth watching if you can find it. Jump Steady. Robert Bruce, aka Jump Steady, is the older brother of Violent J. Jump Steady has worked alongside ICP since basically the beginning, whether that be as a rapper, manager, or a wrestler. He wears a lot of hats. However, his official job title now is the Don of Psychopathic Records. Outside of a handful of solo projects, Jumpsteady is also the main person who puts together the Gathering of the Juggalos every year. Jumpsteady is one of the main people working with ICP behind the scenes, and you'll come across him as you venture through the ICP's work. Esham. Esham is an underground Detroit-based horrorcore and acid rap artist well known to the Juggalos and fans of horrorcore. Esham's been in the game since 1989 and is regarded by fans as one of the first rappers to come out of Detroit. Jay met Esham during the promotion of ICP's first studio album, Dog Beats, and praised Esham, thus beginning a friendship between the duo. ICP and Esham have since collaborated multiple times, with Esham even having a few releases on Psychopathic Records. ICP and Esham are really good friends, and you could often see Esham hanging with ICP. However, Esham and ICP have had bad blood several times over their history, some of which we'll discuss on this iceberg. However, in recent years, Esham has become friendly towards ICP once more, and even revived the rap group Supervillains. He even started a new rap group alongside Violent J and Ouija Mac named the Three-Headed Monster, who are still releasing music together and touring as of me writing this. Esham is a legend in his own right, and he deserves more praise than he gets. I love you, Esham. The Butterfly. On almost every single ICP release, you can find the phrase, dedicated to the butterfly. Jay also has this phrase tatted on his arm, but what exactly does it mean? Well, the butterfly is a reference to an event from Violent J's childhood where Jumpsteady caught a butterfly. Jumpsteady and Jay, who were only ages 6 and 4 respectively, wanted the butterfly to stay the night, so they put it in a little jar with holes poked in it and kept it through the night. However, when they woke up the following morning, the butterfly was no longer living. Jumpsteady and Jay decided to give the butterfly a proper burial, and they felt horrible about what happened. When they get to heaven, they want to make sure the butterfly made it there too, where they can finally apologize to the butterfly face to face. Jay also said that this incident reminds him of a time when he was pure and innocent and not tainted by the outside world. As Jay puts it, one day he'll have to return to that innocent thing he once was, so he can make it to heaven and apologize to the butterfly. The Great Malenko was pulled from shelves. The Great Malenko was the 4th Joker's card released by Insane Clown Posse, which came out on June 24th, 1997. The album was originally released on Hollywood Records, which was and is still owned by Disney. Now, I don't think I have to say this, but ICP is not what I would consider a Disney type in terms of their music. But surprisingly, The Great Malenko was still released by the label. Not for long though, as only hours after the album's initial release, it was officially removed from shelves. The removal was a result of criticisms that the themes didn't fit Disney's values, go figure. Now, it's important to note that at this time, Disney had already been facing heavy criticism for their Disney Gay Day event, as well as the production and distribution of The Ellen Show, Ellen of which had only just recently came out as a lesbian. God, it's weird to look back on something like that and think of how controversial that was at the time. Weird. Anyway, not only was the album pulled, but an upcoming 25-city tour for ICP had been canceled, despite the album having decent sales in the short time it was sold for. ICP was subsequently kicked off Hollywood Records, But the story didn't end sad, as Island Records swooped in and allowed ICP to release The Great Malenko as it was intended to be heard. The album went on to sell very well and has sold over 1.5 million copies as of this video. Forgotten Freshness. Forgotten Freshness is a series of compilation albums from ICP. These albums consist of, as they put it, all the rare, hard to find, lost and scrapped music, as well as remixes. There's 6 separate volumes of Forgotten Freshness, and the physical releases include the story behind each track in the CD booklet. These albums are all well worth checking out for anyone who wants some juicy stories behind songs, as well as anyone who enjoys that rare shit. I also wanted to say that Forgotten Freshness 5 was actually my first ICP CD ever, so technically, if it wasn't for that release, I probably wouldn't be making this video right now. Dark Lotus. Dark Lotus is an underground horrorcore rap group consisting of a constantly changing lineup which has seen multiple members. However, the most consistent members were ICP and Twisted, with appearances from Blaze, ABK, Mars, and a few others. The group has released 4 albums, and their lyrics include dark themes and are overall presented as a cult-type group. While they're genuinely underground, that hasn't stopped Dark Lotus from becoming a fan favorite amongst Juggalos. Psychopathic artists. Okay, so instead of loading up this iceberg with every artist who has ever worked for Psychopathic, I decided just to list them all in one topic to save some time. While there's numerous artists and groups on the label, some of the most important names to ever pen deals with Psychopathic include Twisted, Isham, ABK, Blaze, Big Hoodoo, and Ouija Mac. The last of which is the only artist who is still signed to the label as a solo act. Isham is technically signed to Psychopathic still, but he's part of Three-Headed Monster, which is a 3-person rap group we discussed earlier. These names were and are still big in the Juggalo world, and as you venture down the rabbit hole for ICP, you'll find these names. I also wanted to say a quick sorry to anyone who dislikes the fact that this entry is so short, but I felt like most people that are watching this are more interested in ICP trivia, so I'm just going to stick with that. Behind the Paint. Behind the Paint is a 2003 autobiography written by Violent J and Hobie Eklund. I probably got that name wrong. The book covers Jay's life, including his childhood, meeting Shaggy, and the start of their music career, amongst plenty of other highly intimate details. The book is pretty no-holds-barred and features plenty of details from Jay's life, a lot of which is pretty unpleasant to put it lightly. Still, the book is a great read, and I want to make the joke here so some scrub can't do it first in the comments. Juggalos haven't read this book because Juggalos can't read. Bizarre Bazaar Contract Obligations. Bizarre Bazaar is a double album released on October 31st, 2000, and is ICP's 6th and 7th studio album overall. However, behind the scenes, there was a bit more thought put into the release of a double album, as opposed to only one album. You see, when ICP originally signed with Island Records, the deal was for a certain number of albums. But once ICP got to the 6th Joker's card, they wanted to go solo and release it on their own. The problem was, ICP still had to release 2 albums on Island Records, so their answer was a double album. This double album fulfilled their obligation to Island Records and allowed them to go solo, start Psychopathic, and release the 6th Joker's card on their own. I also wanted to point out that these were the albums which won them the bet against Sharon Osbourne. Shaggy and the Creep. So Shaggy and the Creep was the name given to the team of Shaggy 2 Dope and Keegan the Creep. The duo had a vlog channel where they would do stunts and general vlogs, alongside co-hosting a podcast, The Powcast. The duo were well loved by Juggalos, however one day in 2022, the show abruptly ended, including the original vlog channel being deleted. Shaggy announced this in a short video.
Well, what up, though? I have some bad news, but good news. The bad news is officially the Shaggy and Creep show will no longer be streaming, nor the Pelcast. But keep your panties on, because coming very soon is the Shaggy Show. Woo! And also, fret not, you can still check Keegan out on Twitch and all the endeavors he has going on. Clown love and whoop whoop.
Keegan also discussed this on a live stream, and both sides say the show ended because they wanted to work on separate projects. However, some fans have theorized the show was ended over disagreements between Keegan's brother and rapper Ouija Mac. This theory states that Keegan's brother Josh did art for Ouija Mac, who used the art on merch without giving Josh any money. So Josh and Ouija Mac started beefing, which caused Josh to leave the Powcast. Keegan took his brother's side because why wouldn't he, and left too. This theory is what many people believe actually happened, but I couldn't find any concrete proof. Keegan still live streams to this day, but we have yet to see a reunion of Shaggy and the Creep. The Backyard Wrestling video game. Backyard Wrestling Don't Try This at Home was a video game for Xbox and PS2, which, as the title indicates, was a wrestling video game which was more of a backyard wrestling style versus the traditional wrestling setting. The game was pretty fun to play back in the day, but the reason it's featured on this iceberg is because you could actually play as Insane Clown Posse. Not only that though, as you could play as numerous others from the Juggalo world. ICP also had several songs on the soundtrack, and were even one of the main selling points for the video game. The game even had a sequel, which featured Jay on the cover and, again, had several Juggalo wrestlers as well as plenty of music from ICP. The March on Washington. The Juggalo March on Washington was a protest rally held in 2017. The rally happened in Washington, D.C., where 1,500 Juggalos marched in protest of the label given to them by the FBI. The Juggalos marched on Washington, making their voices heard, and the rally featured speeches from several psychopathic associates. Here, they discussed how the FBI's label had messed up the lives of innocent Juggalos. The event raised awareness and was covered by plenty of outlets, most of which agreed that the Juggalos had been wrongly labeled by the FBI. Tech 9 Beef. With the final entry of this tier, we have Tech 9. Tech 9 is a Kansas City-based artist who's been in the rap game since 1999. While Tech 9 is most well known for his mainstream work, Tech 9 has plenty of different albums with tons of really good music. During his come-up, Tech 9 regularly showed love to the Juggalos and performed multiple times at the Gathering. Tech even featured on ICP's Mighty Death Pop album as the ultimate sign of respect for the group. However, during an appearance on Hot 97, Tech spoke on the similarities between himself and ICP, but the response he gave didn't sit well with the Juggalos. ICP felt as if the Juggalos didn't receive enough love from Tech since Juggalos were one of the first large groups supporting him. Additionally, Tech slowly became more mainstream, which didn't sit well with some Juggalos. Tech began receiving threats, forcing him to cancel his performances at the Gathering, and he hasn't been back since. However, it didn't end there, as Tech responded to the situation on the track Eat 2 with Stevie Stone. However, the beef was short-lived, as during a DJ Vlad interview, Tech broke down what happened between him and ICP. He basically said he was misinterpreted, but he and Violent J talked about the situation where Tech had a chance to explain what he meant, and explained to Jay why he felt as if the Juggalos didn't make him, even though he still had plenty of love for them, and appreciates what they did for him. ICP went on to announce that there was no bad blood between them and Tech 9, but there's since been a bit of a wedge between the Juggalos and the Technicians. Despite this, it wouldn't shock me to see a reunion, or even just a performance from Tech at the Gathering. We could only be so lucky. The Killjoy Club. The Killjoy Club is a rap group consisting of ICP and several members from 3-6 Mafia. These members being DJ Paul, Crunchy Black, and Coops Nika. Yes, I actually said his name. The group has only one album, with the release of Reindeer Games. Reindeer Games is a 16-track project, and there isn't much to say about it, to be honest. For me, it came and went, and that's really it. Slash. Slash is the legendary guitarist for Guns N' Roses, and needs no further introduction. Slash is a huge name in the music world, so it might surprise you to learn that Slash actually collaborated with ICP in the 90s. You see, their track Halls of Illusions from the Great Malenko featured additional guitar from none other than Slash himself. Slash admitted he was a fan of ICP, so as compensation for his contribution, he only asked for some wild Irish Rose. True rock star shit. However, Slash wasn't the only major rock star who was featured on the Great Malenko, as another person who was included was Alice Cooper. Alice Cooper is the legendary lead singer of Alice in Chains. Alice, too, is another huge name in rock and roll and music as a whole, so it surprises many to learn that he, just like Slash, was also included on the Great Malenko. However, Alice wasn't actually in a musical role, and instead plays a voice on the intro of the album, telling the tale of the Great Malenko. However, not long after, ICP did a scathing interview about Alice Cooper. Apparently, after the Great Malenko controversy, Alice Cooper did an interview where he basically said, had he known what the album was about, he wouldn't have done it. ICP responding in that interview makes their opinion of Cooper very clear.
So what about Alice Cooper? He's on the record.
Fuck him, man. He's a bitch, man.
You guys pick up with him?
No, he's a punk-ass bitch. Fuck Alice
I'll
Cooper.
tell you how. You want me? I'm about to school both you guys, because I know I must be coming across as a little bit of a lunatic. This is truth. Alice Cooper, bitch. Want me to tell you why? Check it out. You guys both know Alice Cooper started controversy, right? He fucking created controversy, right? He bit it from us, but he still created it, right? Because he was the first pop sellout to do it. I'll kick him in his dusty ass. Fuck him. And that's how I feel about Alice Cooper. Hey, that was the shit when he did my record, you know what I'm saying? I owed him a favor for life. But he rejected that favor, and he got his ghetto pass revoked.
However, Alice Cooper was later asked about the Great Milenko in an interview and said that they misunderstood what he said. Cooper went on to say the following in a New York Post interview. I did the introduction to their album, The Great Milenko, and they thought I was dissing them because I said in an interview that I didn't really know what the album was about. I also did the opening Stream of Consciousness rap for that album, but I hadn't heard the rest of the tracks. So ICP misinterpreted that. It was as if I said, had I known what it was about, I wouldn't have done it. I still don't know what the album is about. It's not really clear to me if ICP ever acknowledged Cooper's response, so yeah, I guess the entry ends here. The Danny Brown Gathering Incident. Danny Brown is an American rapper who needs no introduction, as he's one of the biggest names in experimental hip-hop and arguably rap as a whole. Danny Brown has never shied away from showing love to ICP and the Juggalos and has plenty of love for the family, despite finding mainstream success. Danny is even featured on an ICP track and even shot a video for the song with Jay and Shaggy. So it wasn't a surprise that Danny Brown was set to perform at the 2021 Gathering. However, when the performance came, the crowd wasn't feeling the set whatsoever. This upset Danny, who after a bit of his set, let loose on the crowd with this rant before finally launching the microphone into the crowd. Now what Danny didn't know at the time was that earlier the same day, Jay had announced he was dealing with heart issues, which obviously put the Juggalos in a bad mood. Danny is said to have apologized to Jay and Shaggy for the situation and has since gone on to apologize for what happened publicly, calling it a diva moment. It doesn't seem like there was any lasting beef due to the situation, but it does remain yet another story of an artist walking off stage at the Gathering. Also, the video you're watching right now, which is often used in posts discussing the situation, was actually recorded by me. Thanks for the views, guys. Incredible Collectible Collection. The Incredible Collectible Collection was a 2-disc compilation CD released by Psychopathic Records in 2017. The album basically served as an unofficial installment to Forgotten Freshness and was only ever sold at the 18th Gathering, with all extra copies being sold in the 2017 Great Milenko Tour. This has made this CD become a pretty valuable piece for anyone's CD collection. The Fursana. In just a little bit, we're going to talk about Snake Busters, but it's important to know that the topic from the first episode of Snake Busters is furries. Violent J's daughter Ruby is a furry, and Jay supports it. And this entry specifically is talking about the lengths Jay has gone to support his daughter. Not only that, but to also just take an interest in her hobbies. To put it bluntly, Jay has his own Fursana, complete with his iconic face paint. I also wanted to take this entry as an opportunity to post this clip, which is one of my favorite lines ever dropped by Violent J.
Can I have your ID?
Whoa! Furry lovers!
Look, let me go in. Give me your ID.
Juffalos. Juffalos, or Juffs, is a term used to describe fake Juggalos, or people who pretend as if they understand the Juggalo culture. There's not really a concrete definition for a Juff, but yeah, it's just a term for Juggalo posers. Dog Beats. Dog Beats is the first official release from Psychopathic Records. At the time, ICP was actually Inner City Posse, which we're going to discuss in a little bit. The album consisted of 4 tracks, and while the album itself is a genuine hip-hop album, it was considered as gangsta rap. The album was sold locally, but didn't see much success overall. ICP has since re-released the album, and even performed it in whole at the Gathering. And despite the obvious low quality of the EP compared to their current projects, Dog Beats is a great look into the beginning of ICP. I'm not allowed to say the name of this one on YouTube, but you see it. So That Show was a Spike TV show which would go through interesting and peculiar ways people have passed on. The show was what you'd expect from a show on Spike TV and focused on farts and women's and that kind of stuff. And they would go out of their way to feature the most outlandish ways to kick the bucket. One of the entries on the list was titled Down with the Clown, and told the story of a clown named Funny Eddie. Eddie didn't like a rap group named Insane Clown Posse, who of course, were played by ICP themselves. Eddie was doused with Faygo, as every person at an ICP show is, and when he went to unplug the speakers, he got electrocuted and ultimately disconnected from the game. The game is life, I don't know, it was a stupid metaphor. Now obviously, the show is 100% made up, so no, there wasn't some disgruntled clown who was sent to Shangri-La via electrocution at an ICP show, but this show was watched by plenty of young ones back in the day, so the fact they were on the show is pretty cool. G-Mo Ski beef. G-Mo Ski is an American rapper with some serious credit to his name. Human Cloth stayed in one of my main playlists for months. G-Mo Ski is currently signed to Magic Ninja and is self-admittedly not a Juggalo himself, but respects the culture. He said he didn't grow up on ICP and Twisted and didn't have the upbringing of a Juggalo, so it wouldn't feel right for him to claim Juggalo. Instead, G was brought into the Juggalo world by Twisted, who signed him solely based on his talent. Fast forward to May of 2017. Insane Clown Posse released the track 6 Foot 7 Foot, a 5-minute track over the classic beat. In this song, ICP dissed Twisted, even including a picture of the Magic Ninja building. It didn't take long at all for a response though, as only hours later, G dropped Pull His Resume, a Violent J diss track which went pretty hard. G-Mo Ski made references to Violent J being gay, accusations of him signing women as a way to copulate, and Young Wicked. The Young Wicked thing we'll discuss in just a little bit. Now, G went on to talk about the diss on the No Jumper podcast, and explained that he didn't fully understand the relationship between Twisted and ICP. But seeing as how he has a history as a battle rapper, when Jay took the shot at Magic Ninja, he just defended his company. As of right now, Jay's never really addressed the beef, and seeing how this happened back in 2017, I don't expect a response. G is still rocking with Magic Ninja and has several solid projects you should check out. Psychopathic Riders. The Psychopathic Riders was a psychopathic-related rap group which consisted of numerous members. Bullet, Full Clip, Lil Shank, Fofo, Cell Block, Twin Gats, Sawed Off, Converse, and Young Dirt. I know I didn't have to read all those, but it was fun. This group was a gangster rap group. However, what the group actually was Psychopathic's response to being called wannabe rappers. The Psychopathic Riders actually consisted of ICP, Twisted, Misery, Blaze, ABK, Esham, and Boondocks. The group has 8 separate projects, with their debut album Dumpin' released in 1999. However, the project featured multiple unlicensed samples and beats, so the album couldn't be sold anywhere. So instead, if you looked in the album booklet for the Amazing Jekyll Brothers, you can find where to send a proof of purchase to get the album for free. And while we're talking about unlicensed releases, Psychopathics from Outer Space. Psychopathics from Outer Space is a collaboration album series featuring rare tracks, outtakes, and completely new materials from everyone on the Psychopathic team. The album series is a pretty good listen and features some legendary ICP tracks, including Slim Anus, their original Eminem diss, Stone Cold Stunner. Earlier we discussed the wrestling history of ICP, which included a short run in the WWE, or as it was known at the time, the WWF. While there's much that's talked about from their time in WWF, one thing that isn't talked about as much as it should be is the fact that Violent J took a stunner from none other than Stone Cold Steve Austin himself on an episode of Monday Night Raw. On the November 30th, 1998 edition of Monday Night Raw, Jay, alongside wrestler Thrasher, were in the ring when Stone Cold hit the ring and delivered a classic Stone Cold stunner to the Duke of the Wicked, Violent J. Jay has since talked about this moment and has went on to state that the plan was for the other guy, Thrasher, to take the first stunner instead of Jay. So when Jay got stunned first, it caught him off guard. This is why his selling of the move wasn't good at all. And if I'm being objective here, yeah, the sell was not good. Still, it's not as bad as when Linda McMahon had to sell the stunner. Spasmatic. Starting off tier 6 with a weird one, Spasmatic was an energy drink created and sold by Psychopathic Records. Spasmatic doesn't really seem to have much information I could find online of what the drink actually is, outside of the fact that it's an energy drink. I can't tell you the flavor, ingredients, or anything else you'd probably like to know about something you're putting in your body. The drink was sold on the Psychopathic web store, as well as Hot Topic, but that's all I could really find. Maybe in a future video, I'll track down a Spasmatic to give you guys an authentic taste test review. Inner City Posse. So back when ICP first started rapping, they were still known as ICP, however, the acronym at this time stood for Inner City Posse. Inner City Posse was the first iteration of ICP who were doing gangster rap. Now, the Inner City Posse was promoted as an actual gang. However, they've since talked about this era, explaining that they weren't really actually gangsters and their only crime activity were simple petty crimes. Inner City Posse also had several other members besides just Jay and Shaggy, including rappers John Kick Jazz, Kid Villain, and D Lyrical. As Inner City Posse, they released 3 separate albums before finally rebranding themselves to the horrorcore style we know today. Another important thing to point out is that while there's been official re-releases of Inner City Posse materials, there is a good amount of music from this era which is considered lost media. Ghetto Territory and Enter the Ghetto Zone. Ghetto Territory and Enter the Ghetto Zone are two EPs from the Inner City Posse era which are considered as lost media. Both EPs are said to have been released in 1990 and were very low quality tapes made with shoddy equipment. These EPs were only ever given away for free to friends and family, and there are supposed pictures of these EPs, as well as track lists on Discogs. Yet these two EPs have never been archived in any way online. Now, these two EPs are often considered as some of the most sought after pieces of ICP lost media. However, they aren't considered to be the Holy Grail. Instead, the Holy Grail of ICP lost media is Party at the Top of the Hill. So in the last few topics, I explained that the Inner City Posse was the first iteration of ICP. However, this wasn't technically the first rap group consisting of Jay and Shaggy. Instead, the first rap group for them was a group named the JJ Boys. Now, from everything I've been able to find about the JJ Boys, they weren't really meant to be a serious group, and instead was Jay, Shaggy, and John Kickjazz messing around and just having fun. The only song the JJ Boys ever released was a track named Party at the Top of the Hill, which was recorded on a 4-track converter and given to friends and family. However, the reason this is considered the holy grail of ICP lost media is because of what Jay said about the song in his autobiography, writing, "This song was never for sale, and was the first ever recorded material by Joe, Joey, and John, rapping as the JJ Boys. There were only a few cassettes made, and they are assumed to be lost forever." So yeah, Party on the Top of the Hill is considered to be the first ever recorded materials from Jay and Shaggy, thus making it the technical first song from Insane Clown Posse. And now that I've mentioned his name multiple times, you're probably wondering who John Kickjazz is. John Kickjazz. John Kickjazz is the brother of Shaggy 2 Dope, who was an official member of ICP's initial lineup. Information on John is pretty slim, so take this entire topic with a grain of salt, but it's said he decided to leave the group shortly after Carnival of Carnage. As the years went on, John and Shaggy never really had a close relationship. Additionally, John's life spiraled out of control, and it's said he had issues with addiction and even lived in group homes, the Salvation Army, and even with his mother. But in the early 2000s, John actually surprised Shaggy at the gathering of the Juggalos, where he and his brother squashed their beef, and had a better relationship from that point on. However, John still struggled with addiction for the rest of his life, until his passing in November of 2015, at only 42 years old. ICP took time to talk about John in the early days of ICP on a 2015 episode of the Juggalos show, which gives a very in-depth look into the history of not only John, but all the early members of ICP. There's also this long post which was said to be written by Violent J, but I do want to reiterate how all the facts I just said should be taken with a grain of salt, seeing as how any sources for this is pretty limited. Still, John Kickjazz is an absolute legend in the Juggalo world, and despite him never really getting to experience that, his name will forever be remembered. Snake Busters. Snake Busters was a short-lived series on the Psychopathic YouTube channel which only ever saw 2 episodes. These episodes set out to, quote, expose snakes and caught some attention with the first episode. In episode 1, we're introduced to Violent J's daughter Ruby, who is a proud furry. So they explain how they ordered a furry suit for Ruby from a company named OISK, who apparently promised a high-quality suit. But once they received it, it wasn't the same as the one in the picture, and was all around poor quality. The video then caught the attention of people outside the furry community, who saw Jay's participation in his daughter's hobby, as well as making this video with her, as pretty endearing. I mean, the fact he's this involved in something which some parents might have difficulty understanding and supporting is a pretty cool dad move. There was only one other episode of Snake Busters which saw them going after cosmetic companies which test their products on animals. And sadly, that was the last we ever saw of Snake Busters. Jay and Ruby are still said to have a great relationship, and the Snake Busters series is pretty wholesome to look back on. Morton's List. Morton's List is this random reality game which tasks players with doing random activities. The game is presented in a 402-page book with a table master leading the game. Players then roll a 30-sided die which chooses a quest, which the player vows to spend at least 1 hour participating in. Now, the game has garnered some controversy since some of the quests you can get involve illegal activities or just dangerous stuff. Some of these activities are use of illegal substances, spell casting, and things like that. This has caused the game to be banned from many different toy and game shows, and even being pulled from shelves with unsold copies being destroyed, thus making these physical books highly valuable to a collector. But the reason it's on an ICP Iceberg is because the game was co-created by the brother of Violent J, Robert Bruce, aka Jump Steady. Because of this, the game is regularly promoted to and played by Juggalos and Juggalettes, who, from what I've been able to tell, are the main audience for Morton's List. As of the recording of this video, the second edition of Morton's List is available for pre-order, with a release set for the summer of 2024. AMB. AMB was a rap group signed to Psychopathic Records with a very controversial history to say the least. AMB consisted of members Bones Dub and Young Wicked, aka Otis. The duo signed to Psychopathic in 2006, releasing their studio album and the only album as AMB on Psychopathic. After this, they would leave Psychopathic, and what followed was several years of joining and leaving labels, before ultimately returning to Psychopathic in 2013, rebranded as the Garcia Brothers. The Garcia Brothers found success on Psychopathic, but Otis found solo success producing numerous songs on several ICP projects, some of which he was listed as the main producer. But towards the end of 2016, rumors began spreading that Young Wicked had been fired, and these rumors began really picking up with the announcement of a new in-house producer at Psychopathic. Fan speculations were ultimately confirmed on December 31st of 2016, with the announcement that Young Wicked had signed with MNE Records. It was obvious there was some sort of beef between Young Wicked and Psychopathic, but no one ever really knew what it was. But just 5 days after the announcement of his signing to Magic Ninja, it was revealed that Young Wicked had impregnated the daughter of Jump Steady, aka the niece of Violent J. In an interview, Violent J stated that the relationship between Samantha and Young Wicked was gross and crossed the line, with the signing to Magic Ninja being the final nail in the coffin in the beef between ICP and Twisted. Many people say this is when the issues between ICP and Twisted turned into a full-blown beef, and some Juggalos have strong negative opinions about AMB and Young Wicked, basically to the point of scrutinizing anyone who decides to listen to anything from his discography. As of right now, Young Wicked is still signed to Magic Ninja, and his personal life is pretty private. The story of Young Wicked is a touchy subject to the Juggalos, but it does seem as if Jump Steady has a good relationship with his daughter, so at least we have that. Violent J said Juggalos are a gang. So full disclosure, I'm not 100% sure what this topic is supposed to represent. I noticed this topic was on a couple other ICP icebergs, so I decided to include it here. But what I think this topic is referring to is the ABK song Gang Related. Simply put, Gang Related is about how you know if you're gang related. There's a specific line in the song where Jay says, "Do you wear a hatchet, man? You in a gang." However, again, I'm not 100% sure if this is what this topic is supposed to mean, so take it with a grain of salt. Fat Sweaty Betty cassette tape. There's this extremely rare cassette tape single of this rare ICP track titled Fat Sweaty Betty. The cassette tape was given away on April 7th and 8th of 1995 at a show which took place at the Ritz in Roseville, Michigan. I think I said Ville, but fuck it. This cassette tape has become a valuable collector's piece, but isn't as hard to find as you might expect. This is just another rare piece from the early days of ICP which hardcore collectors need in their collection. Shaggy's 2012 traffic stop. Back in November of 2012, Shaggy 2 Dope was pulled over by cops in Livonia, Michigan, under the suspicion that he was drunk driving. As the story goes, Shaggy allowed police to draw some blood, which was then sent to the state for analysis. Over 1 year later, in February of 2014, the results finally came back and found numerous substances in Shaggy's system. Shaggy was charged with DWI, and it's not really clear what the outcome of this case was. Now, Fox 2 in Detroit covered the story in a news report, with their legal analyst saying he believed the case should be thrown out of court due to how long the results took to come back. Still, I was unable to find the official outcome of this case. I'm not allowed to say the name of this one on YouTube, but you see it. Okay, so I'm going to have to be extremely careful with this topic since YouTube might not be happy with any discussion of it. Basically, there's this picture which has been around for a really long time which shows pictures of what the topic says, with the parents wearing ICP apparel and the casket featuring Hatchet Man logos. The lore of the event can be found online, but I don't really want to risk talking about this anymore, so let's just end this here. The Lost Vanilla Ice album. So earlier we discussed how Vanilla Ice has been down with the clown for as far back as I can tell. But what you might not know is that Vanilla Ice was actually signed to Psychopathic back in 2011. He was signed with Psychopathic until at least 2017, as stated by Violent J in an interview. It was even said Vanilla Ice was working on an official album with Mike E. Clark. It's believed about 5 songs were completed for the project. However, in 2020, it was announced that Ouija Mac was the only other artist signed to Psychopathic. Now, it's not really clear what happened between Vanilla Ice and Psychopathic and when exactly he officially left the label, but more importantly, the album he was working on has since been lost, with nothing besides these mentions to prove it ever existed. Tom Wood. Tom Wood is an American artist who specializes in fantasy and is known by the Juggalos for his work with the ICP. Tom Wood has done art for ICP on numerous occasions, which you'll see throughout the Juggalo world, including the logos for several of the gathering of the Juggalos. Tom also sells plenty of original artwork and prints of Juggalo-themed things. Tom has also done work for other musical acts, but I think it's safe to say his most popular work was with ICP, and due to his popularity in the Juggalo world, has even began his own music event, Tom Wood's The Float. Tom Wood and ICP seem to have a great working relationship, so if you go to any future gatherings, you can count on seeing Tom Wood. The Supervillains. Back in 2002, the Insane Clown Posse decided to team up with fellow rappers Esham and Lavelle to form a rap supergroup by the name of the Supervillains. The verses on Supervillains songs were written like comic book supervillains, with each rapper having their own supervillain alter ego. These alter egos were Mr. Diamond, Mr. Spade, Mr. Hart, and Mr. Club. The group had a handful of songs and features before dropping their debut album Furious in 2005. However, not long after, Esham and Lavelle had some sort of disagreement with Psychopathic, and abruptly left, disbanding the Supervillains for over 10 years. However, in 2016, a Supervillains reunion was teased, and in 2019, an official Supervillains compilation album was released. Now, this album only had songs people had already heard before, with Lavelle being 100% absent, and Shaggy only being heard a handful of times on this record. Yet, people were still happy to see a reunion of the Supervillains. There hasn't really been much else said about the Supervillains in recent years, but with Esham being more involved with Psychopathic, I'd say it's only a matter of time before the villains return. The Pendulum. The Pendulum is a comic book series based on the Dark Carnival. The series saw 12 32-page comic books fully illustrated, which told the story of the Insane Clown Posse fighting an army of minions. No, not those kind of minions. Each comic book also came with a CD single, which if you got all 12 and laid out all the CDs, you'd form a full-sized poster. There was also a graphic novel which featured all 12 comic books in one book. I was never a comic book guy personally, so I'm not sure if these comic books are good quality or not, but they look like they're pretty good quality to me. I don't know. Comment below if you've read these and tell me if they're good or not. Carnival of Karnak. As we discussed earlier, and as you might have been able to tell, Violent J and Shaggy were big fans of Esham when they were first starting out. So the duo decided to get an Esham feature on their first studio album and the very first Joker's card, Carnival of Carnage. The story goes that Jay paid Esham $300 to produce the opening track and perform on the song repeating Carnival of Carnage over and over again. However, Esham misheard what he was supposed to say and instead repeated the phrase Carnival of Karnak. When Jay heard the intro, he asked Esham to re-record the vocals, but Esham declined to do so. Violent J had no choice but to dub over the line himself. Jay wrote about this event in his book, saying, "We tried to mix the title track Carnival of Carnage that Esham made for us. We listened to the words and discovered that Esham had mispronounced Carnage as Karnak. I don't know what the fuck a Karnak is, but I knew that wasn't the name of the mighty first Joker's card, that was for sure. We called him up and explained the situation, but he wasn't having it. That's what you said the album was called, Carnival of Carnage, right? No, Esham, I never said that. Our album is called Carnival of Carnage. Well, you told me it was Carnival of Carnix, he said. No, I didn't. Why would I say that? What the fuck is a Karnak anyway? I asked. You tell me. That's what you said it was called. He shot back. Well, can you do it again for us, and this time just say Carnage instead of Carnix? Nah, just leave it, he said and hung up. Like I was actually gonna leave it like that. For the rest of my life, I'd be trying to explain to people what a fucking Karnak is. Eventually, I just redid the vocals myself. Now, when you listen to the main intro song of Carnival of Carnage, it's me saying that, instead of Esham. The Bubba Sparks Award. During the third annual gathering of the Juggalos in 2002, there was a performance by an artist named Bubba Sparks. While Bubba Sparks is a good artist, the crowd didn't enjoy this set at all, and promptly threw bottles at him and booed him off stage. This was the first time that this had happened to any artist at the gathering, but it surely wouldn't be the last. So anytime that an artist is booed off stage or bottled, they're said to have received the quote, Bubba Sparks Award. Other winners of this award were Riff Raff, Danny Brown, Andrew WK, Yin Yang Twins, and of course, Tila Tequila. Bizarre teased Big Money Restless. So this entry is referring to the Easter egg inside the CDs of the ICP double album Bizarre Bazaar. These CD booklets were already highly interactive, with tons of stuff to look at. But not many people know that if you take out the CD tray on both CDs, you'll see these two pictures. These photos are actually promotional pictures for the movie Big Money Rustlers. And what's surprising to learn is that the production of the movie didn't actually begin until over 8 years later. So for 8 years, these Easter eggs were just sitting in these CDs for people to wonder what they were. Gathering exclusive singles. Simply put, there are tons of different CDs which were only ever sold at the Gathering of the Juggalos, including in all recent years for anyone with a VIP pass for the event. VIP guests are usually given a CD single as part of their VIP package. Besides these singles, there are other EPs and full albums which were only ever available in physical form at the Gathering. Hallowicked exclusive singles. Similar to the last entry, ICP typically has a CD exclusive to their annual Hallowicked concerts, which takes place every year on Halloween. Now, despite the Hallowicked event being immensely smaller than the Gathering, the Hallowicked releases aren't always seen as more valuable, seeing as how they're usually sold outside of Hallowicked shows. The best thing I can suggest to anyone considering collecting either the Hallowicked or Gathering singles is to practice some patience, as you might end up finding some of these so-called exclusives at other events. Death Racers. This entry is referring to a 2008 movie which is supposed to be this huge race taking place between criminals in some sort of dystopian United States of the future. There are numerous teams taking part in that race, and one of these teams just so happens to be the Insane Clown Posse. Now, the movie isn't a masterpiece of cinema by any means, and Violent J has even spoke out saying the movie is poo-poo, but that hasn't stopped them from selling copies on their web store. Now, anyone looking for a completed psychopathic collection is going to have to pick up this DVD, but honestly, don't expect much from it. It sucks. It sucks so bad. Isham pulled a gun on Violent J. Ending Tier 7 with a banger, there's this famous story from the early days of the careers of ICP. As the story goes, ICP dissed Isham during one of their shows, and when Isham learned about this, he took a weapon to the home of Violent J. Apparently though, Jay was able to calm down Isham, and after a short chat, they became friends. It's pretty obvious that Isham and ICP have a very complicated history to say the least. Chris Chan. To start Tier 8, we're going to talk about everybody's favorite lolcow, Christine Weston Chandler. Christine is best known for her extremely well-documented life on the internet of over 20 years at this point. Christine has tons of videos you can find, and it just so happens one of these videos features a Juggalo Chris. The 2009 video shows Christine in full-blown clown paint, singing along to Juggalo Family by Dark Lotus. As you might expect, Christine gets most of the lyrics wrong, but still tries her hardest to keep up. It's a weird chapter in the forever expanding story of Christine Weston Chandler, and yeah, I don't really know what else to say. The Tempest isn't part of the Dark Carnival, so we discussed how all ICP albums are related, whether it be the ones who overlooked the Dark Carnival or the sideshows and rides themselves. Well, truth is, I actually lied to you. ICP's 10th studio album, The Tempest, seems at first like yet another sideshow for the Dark Carnival, in the same vein as Tunnel of Love or The Terror Wheel. However, The Tempest is not a part of the Dark Carnival story. You see, ICP originally planned on the first 6 Joker's cards to be it, so with the final official Joker's card of Deck 1, Hell's Pit, the story was over. ICP then released their 10th studio album, The Tempest, outside of the Dark Carnival story. The album is a concept album on its own, comparing life to a roller coaster, and is honestly a pretty good album. The Tower is one of my favorite J tracks, but I digress. However, not long after the release of The Tempest, it was announced there would be a second deck in the series, and in 2009, the first card of Deck 2 was officially released. The Tempest remains their only studio album as ICP, which is not part of the Dark Carnival story. And to this day, the Dark Carnival story is still being told, and there are even plans of a third deck. Icon. So, Icon is a 2011 Greatest Hits compilation album, which is technically the 10th compilation album from the duo. However, the controversy with this album is the fact that it wasn't actually released by Psychopathic, and was instead released by Island Records. You see, even though Insane Clown Posse left Island Records in the early 2000s, Island Records still had the rights to all the music from The Great Malenko, The Amazing Jekyll Brothers, and both Bizarre albums. So they took the most popular tracks off each album and ultimately made this Greatest Hits album. But when you look at it, even the cover stands out from an official ICP release, and ultimately, it's been forgotten about by Juggalos and Juggalettes. Yeah, there's some songs on it you'll like from the duo, but it's not really worth adding to your collection. The original Shaggy Show. Okay, so back in 1999, the ICP album The Amazing Jekyll Brothers featured a track titled The Shaggy Show, which was supposed to be the entirety of a talk show with an opening monologue, commercials, and even special guests, including none other than Snoop Dogg being the final guest. The name The Shaggy Show has since become the name of his video podcast. However, this isn't actually the first time the Shaggy Show name has been used. Back in the early to mid 2000s, there was a series of videos which could be downloaded on the ICP website, which was also called The Shaggy Show. Now, these videos are really just videos of ICP backstage and messing around and stuff. I found an archive of these videos on the Wayback Machine, and most of them are extremely low quality since they were uploaded in the early 2000s. All these videos aren't really much to look at, but as far as I can tell, this is the earliest use of The Shaggy Show. The Witch is Satan. There's a certain song on ICP's 2004 album Hell's Pit, which is titled The Witch. The Witch features ICP talking about some entity named The Witch, which is telling them things which leads to them doing bad things. This song is a fan favorite, however there's a very easy to miss Easter egg in the CD booklet, where if you look at the lyrics to another one of the tracks, Walk Into Darkness, whenever Violent J refers to Satan, the lyric booklet instead reads, The Witch. Because of this, there's a new meaning to the song The Witch, meaning ICP is being talked to by Satan himself. It's just a small little Easter egg for the hardcore fans who evaluate their music with a fine-toothed comb. Big Money Outtakes DVD. As we discussed earlier, ICP has two movies, Big Money Hustlers and Big Money Rustlers. While physical media for either one of these movies are great finds for anyone's collection, the most valuable physical media for these movies is the DVD, which contains outtakes from Big Money Hustlers. This DVD is, in my opinion, the rarest DVD for any ICP collection. I wasn't able to confirm wherever it was originally sold, but I did find one post where a person said that they got it at a Juggalo Day event. The Hollowicked 2000 box set. Staying on the topic of rare merchandise, one of the most famous pieces is this box set from Hollowicked 2000. This box set was only sold at the event and featured 4 CDs worth of music, as well as a shirt and a certificate of authenticity. These CDs are highly valuable because they not only feature a completely unique EP for Hollowicked, which was only ever released in this box, but also alternative covered CDs for 2 ICP albums, Bizarre Bazaar and Twisted's second studio album, Freak Show. This box set was ICP's first ever box set as far as I could tell, and goes for a pretty good price if you could actually find one. Good luck with that. Superheroes. Just a little bit ago, we discussed the supervillains, the rap group consisting of ICP, Esham, and Lavelle. As you know, Furious was the only official album release from the group. Well, if you look in the booklet for the Furious CD, you'll come across an advertisement for something named Superheroes. Now, we can presume this album was meant to be the sequel to Supervillains. However, this album never came out. It's unclear to me if Superheroes was ever actually started or what, and it remains yet another listing in the surprisingly long list of cancelled psychopathic projects. Mars and Dark Lotus. Okay, so the following entry is a pretty famous story in the world of ICP, but isn't really known to the world outside of Juggalo culture. Mars was a popular rapper from Chicago who caught the attention of Violent J, who wanted to sign Mars to Psychopathic. J decided to include Mars in the debut project for Dark Lotus, Tales from the Lotus Pod, as a full-blown member. The album was initially released on July 17, 2001. However, not long after the release of the albums were abruptly pulled off shelves, and the following year, a reissued version of the album was released, with new cover art and Mars being scrapped entirely from the album, and all of his verses being replaced by rapper ABK. So here's the question. Why was this album recalled and re-released? And why was Mars completely wiped from psychopathic history? But the most accepted theory, with the most evidence to back it up, is that Mars was going to be signed to Psychopathic in the early 2000s. However, Mars was already signed with another label. But despite that, Mars said he would be able to get out of his contract. Mars was ultimately unable to get out of the contract though, and on top of that, not everyone else in Dark Lotus were fans of his verses. This all coupled together in a perfect storm which saw Mars and ICP beef, which even saw an ICP diss track from Mars. This is what led to the reissue of the album. However, I was able to find an article online where Mars himself says he was removed because fans liked him more than ICP. However, this story doesn't really have any evidence, while the entire contract dispute thing does. Mars continued making music, and today is a Christian rapper, so there's that. Dark Lotus was already meant to be a confusing group, so this story makes it that much more confusing for a noob trying to understand. Personally, I enjoy the original version of Tales from the Lotus Pod much more than the ABK version, and a lot of people share this belief with me. However, I'm curious to know if you do too, so let me know in the comments which one you liked more. One of one auction CDs. This topic refers to 2 CDs sold during the 2018 Gathering of the Juggalos auction. These 2 CDs featured songs which have only ever been pressed on the These 2 CDs and nowhere else. Despite having pictures of the discs, as well as track lists, 3 of the 4 songs have never been heard, with the 4th song on both albums being Burning Abandoned House, which was heard in a deleted scene from the documentary United States of Insanity. These songs will likely remain unheard for the foreseeable future, and are technically the most valuable CDs for anyone's ICP collection. King Crimson. King Crimson is referring to an obscure rapper who is best known for his appearance on Dr. Phil in 2018. King Crimson, real name Nick Glover, was brought on to Dr. Phil by his wife, who claimed Glover had not only been neglectful in the way he was chasing his dream of becoming a rapper, but had also stolen money from her to do so. Nick basically said, if his wife had a job which keeps them afloat, why should he have to get a job? The full episode is currently available on YouTube, and I don't want to spoil it because it's a really good watch, but the best part of the entire episode is when ICP themselves came on to say what they thought of King Crimson. This is also where Dr. Phil says how much he enjoys ICP and was actually a fan. Now, King Crimson continued the pursuit of his dream after the episode aired, with multiple vlogs and music videos you can find online, most of which are pretty difficult to watch. Crimson also dissed ICP in these videos, who, surprise surprise, never responded. However, it's been a few years since Crimson, now named Crimson X, has posted as Crimson, so maybe he's done with the character. We can all only hope. The Wraith and Significant Other covers. If you put the album cover of The Wraith next to the album cover for Significant Other by Limp Bizkit, you'll notice that the hand on both covers looks identical. Seeing as how the ICP album came second, the common belief is that the hand was traced for the Wraith cover. No one from Psychopathic has ever commented on this, at least as far as I could tell. The Mighty Death Pop music video. So ICP released numerous music videos in promotion of the Mighty Death Pop, but one of these music videos has been virtually forgotten about. The title track, The Mighty Death Pop, had a purposely made low-quality music video which showed Jay and Shaggy rapping their verses in extremely low-quality clips, intertwined with some famous clips of people failing stunts and getting hit by cars and stuff like that. The video was uploaded to their channel at one point, but was quickly deleted. It has since been re-uploaded elsewhere online, but it seems to have been forgotten about by mostly everyone. The Linklet. There was this inside joke on a Facebook group for the Gathering 2023, which originates with a post from a guy talking about how him and his girlfriend were gonna be at the Gathering, and no one better try to touch his girlfriend. It also included the picture you're seeing right now, which was said to be his girlfriend. This became the biggest inside joke on this group, with everyone preaching not to touch the Linklet. Once the Gathering came around, people actually found the Linklet, and as it turns out, she had no idea she was a meme. So here's where this story gets interesting. During my research, I was actually able to find the Linklet herself on Facebook, so I decided to reach out to her, asking what it was like from her perspective, and here's what she had to say. I never really considered myself a Juggalo/let, and only started to be exposed to that lifestyle after I met my boyfriend. He's loved ICP since he was a little kid. We listened to some music and went to some Juggalo concerts together. One of these concerts was local to me and was ABK and Blaze. We decided to do face paint for the show, and I posted that picture on r/Juggalo. It got a few upvotes, but I didn't really think about it. Then I go to the Gathering with my boyfriend, both of our first times, and I was expecting it to be low-key and that we would fly under the radar. On the first day, this guy walked up to me and asked me if I was the Linklet. I thought he had the wrong person, so I said no, but he kept insisting I looked exactly like her. He said there had been a bunch of memes about me for weeks in the now-defunct Gathering of the Juggalos Facebook group. So he showed me the group in one of the memes, and I was like, oh my god, that's my face. So I joined the group that very same day and saw hundreds of people had been making memes about me for weeks at this point from the picture I had posted on Reddit. I was honestly a little overwhelmed and shocked because I had no idea this was even a meme before I arrived. People were mostly very nice, and I got a shit ton of friend requests and everyone recognized me. By the end of it, I had come to terms with my fame. The girl who made it is named Marky, and I guess she thought it was a funny picture to use to make a meme. Nobody really even thought it was a meme. and they thought my boyfriend actually wrote the original post. She included some pictures of her and her boyfriend, and yeah, she seemed pretty chill. Not much of the stuff about the linklet is still on Facebook since it was all in the Gathering Facebook group, which seems to have been deleted. However, the legend of the linklet still lives on. And full disclosure, this topic is kind of meant just as a entry spot for all of the Juggalo micro celebrities. There's a ton of people who are popular like this in the world of Juggalo culture. There are too many of these micro celebrities to talk about on this list. So I decided just to take a story I really enjoyed and use that to represent the overall idea. However, shout out to Uncle Juff. Shaggy doesn't write his own verses conspiracy. This entry is referring to the theory that Shaggy doesn't actually write his own verses. This topic has been discussed in depth online, and people have included evidence as to why this could be true. A lot of it boils down to the idea that Jay seems to do more in terms of actual rapping, and there are numerous songs with writing credits going to Violent J only, while the performance is credited to Insane Clown Posse. In my opinion, the odds that Jay has written verses for Shaggy is pretty high. However, the idea that Shaggy has never written a verse for himself is pretty silly. It's a pretty common practice for verses to be written by someone else in the rap game, with a good example being Dr. Dre, who has practically never written his own verses on any of his features. Yeah, I don't know. .com Violent J vocals. The last track, .com, from the Dark Lotus album Tales from the Lotus Pod, is the group rapping out the names of Juggalo websites and businesses, basically shouting out the dedicated Juggalo community. However, there's this lesser known fact about this track, which is the fact that very faintly in the background, Violent J can be heard whispering random things. These whispers are all over the place, but they're mostly just thank yous and I love yous to the Juggalos. You can find Jay's isolated vocals, as well as the transcripts of what he said online. Riddlebox Promotional Chicken Bucket. As you could probably tell, ICP is no stranger to the merchandise game. However, there's this one piece of merch which I've never been able to find much information on. Back in 1995, ICP apparently released their very own chicken bucket in promotion of the third Joker's card, Riddlebox. Riddlebox featured one of ICP's most popular songs ever, Chicken Huntin', which was also the lead single off of Riddlebox. So as the story goes, this chicken bucket contained numerous cassette singles of Chicken Huntin'. Now it sounds like this was meant for music shops to put out and sell the singles, but there isn't much you can find on this item online. The only thing I could find was one single page from valueyourmusic.com of someone looking to sell this item back in 2015. As far as I can find, this is the only time this chicken bucket was ever mentioned on the internet. Feminem.com. Feminem is the nickname given to Eminem by ICP during the heyday of their beef. Feminem.com was a website created in 2000 in support of Insane Clown Posse during the beef with Eminem. This website was made to catalog anything which could humiliate Eminem. The website also focused on trying to humiliate the fans of Shady, who were obviously opposed to the website. It also included a forum which, in some places, allowed non-registered users to post, which attracted Eminem fans to post on the forum. This would cause the actual members on the forum to relentlessly troll them. Surprisingly, the website still exists, but now all you'll find is an explanation on the history of Feminem.com, and Feminem.com is just one example of the dedicated sub-communities which existed in the Juggalo world. There are dozens of other forgotten forums you can discover online, but I feel as if this one paints the picture the best. And while we're discussing Eminem at the Riddlebox release party. So there's this theory that Eminem was at an early album release party for ICP. Detroit had a very dedicated underground hip-hop scene, and one of the biggest names, if not the biggest name in the scene, was Proof. So in 1995, ICP threw an album release party for the release of the third Joker's card, Riddlebox. The party featured several musical acts, including Proof. The video of Proof's performance can be found online, and some have theorized that you can actually see Eminem in the video. Now, I'm not sure which person exactly is supposed to be Eminem, but I think the best guess, if anybody, is this person right here. Still, the video is too low quality to tell, but it's interesting to think about. The ICP Eminem beef wouldn't have started yet. Also, it wouldn't have been too weird for M to accompany Proof, considering Proof and Eminem's friendship. ICP The Gathering Game. In 2018, ICP released an actual iPhone game by the name of ICP The Gathering, which was a tycoon-style game which you would create your own Gathering of the Juggalos event. The game cost users $3.99 on the App Store and was originally met with very negative reviews, citing the poor mechanics and confusing gameplay. The game is no longer available in the App Store, but you might be able to find a download or two online if you look hard enough. God made dirt and dirt don't hurt. During the early days of coronavirus, Shaggy posted the following video on his Instagram.
Everybody out here sweating the coronavirus, sweating the coronavirus. I'm gonna teach you a little trick right now. Everybody wants to go buy the toilet paper, the water, put on the little fucking Michael Jackson mask and whatnot. I'll show you how to defeat the coronavirus. Check it out. Good old-fashioned dirt snow. God made dirt. Dirt don't hurt. Take out the rocks, and then it'll build your immune system. That's how you beat the fucking system.
The reason why this is on the iceberg, though, is the fact that several websites ran a story on the video, basically talking about how Shaggy says the cure for coronavirus is eating dirty snow. Now, it's obvious Shaggy was just trying to make a funny video, and it's unclear if these websites were trying to present this as something that Shaggy actually believed. Davey Vanity is Juggalo enemy number 1. Davey Vanity was the lead singer of the band Blood on the Dance Floor, which was this dance pop electronica band which had an appeal to preteens and high schoolers. While the band did find success, the only thing the band is really remembered for these days is the allegations against Vanity, starting in 2009. I'm not allowed to say verbatim what he's been accused of, but multiple women have accused him of some pretty foul things. But you might be wondering what this has to do with ICP. Well, after Violent J learned about the stories of Vanity, he took to Facebook and let loose on a scathing rant, calling out Vanity and naming him as the official Juggalo enemy number 1. The post also called for Juggalos to hurt Vanity if they ever see him. Vanity has since been highlighted in multiple documentaries, including being a person of interest to Chris Hansen. As of the recording of this video, Vanity is still a free man, and is still Juggalo enemy number 1. Joe and Joey Records. Joe and Joey Records is a record label founded in 2000 by Violent J and Shaggy 2 Dope. The record label is where you can find releases from the Psychopathic Writers, as well as Psychopathics from Outer Space. While these releases are pretty good, there is a question of legality, as these releases often featured songs which might include beats or samples with questionable legality. So instead of releasing these tracks on Psychopathic, they founded the label Joe and Joey Records, which are the official label behind these projects. That way, if someone did end up suing over a release, it wouldn't be a Psychopathic issue, thus protecting the Psychopathic brand. And finally, a sign that the 6th is coming. So we all know what happened on September 11, 2001. However, during the events of that morning, it said that the Insane Clown Posse website updated and included a picture of the smoke which was bellowing from the towers. If you looked into the smoke, you could see a picture which looked awfully a lot like one of the Jekyll brothers. It said the picture also featured a caption which practically said that the event was a sign that the 6th was coming. The 6th, of course, being a reference to the 6th and final Joker's card. However, sometime shortly after, the picture was removed from the website and replaced with an apology. Now, it doesn't seem like anyone ever archived this with a screenshot. However, multiple people say they remembered this. I even found someone who claims to have reposted the original post, but I'm unable to find this anywhere else to back up. Obviously, looking back on it, it seems highly distasteful to post this. But while the events of 9/11 unfolded in real time, people didn't know it was actually an attack. I'm not saying it makes it perfectly okay to make fun of a flaming building, but they had no idea they were making a joke about the biggest attack on American soil, so cut them some slack. This post was a highly bad call on Insane Clown Posse's part, and they probably want the entire thing forgotten about. So, sorry about talking about it, I guess. Well, that was it. The entire Insane Clown Posse iceberg. As I said in the intro, this iceberg could potentially have hundreds, probably even 1,000 different topics that could go into it. So I decided just to take some of the more interesting topics and put them onto one iceberg, but with that being said, I'm highly interested in making a part 2 to this. So if you know anything I missed, please leave them in the comments below. And while you're down there, make sure to like the video, subscribe, and go watch another video on my channel. I have tons of cool stuff. We're done, I don't really care. This was like a 4-hour recording session, so I'm gonna go. So I guess thank you for watching, and remember, Kobe sucks.